big. Okay, MacArthur, relax.
I'm ready. Here we go.
talking about drawing a line in the sand.
Yes.
You know, like this is the parallel, right? In Korea.
Yes.
Yeah. That's it. This is what we're gonna do.
Yeah, north and south, totally diametrically opposed.
Yeah, and
countries.
it stops here. Thanks.
One is free and capitalistic. The other one is total dictatorship.
Yeah, total mess is what it is. MacArthur he was up there in Korea, right?
Yeah, and then he wanted to go farther. He wanted to push.
Yeah.
I think Patton was all on board with him too, to say, hey, while we're here, let's just go ahead and take over. But the Chinese were not too, they were backing North Korea.
They backed North Korea, and you can see we got a map over here. Just the geography alone, you can start to understand how the mindset of how that flow works.
I just get mad. I'm mad at the maps because of making Africa so small when I realized how huge it was.
Africa's huge.
Africa should be almost the whole map. Yeah. Technically, you can take Russia, China, South America, the United States, and shove it all in Africa. That's how big Africa is. You know, and there's 50 something countries. Yeah,
the scale's just totally wrong on that.
Yeah, look how small Africa is. It shouldn't be that way.
What type of colonists put this world map together? It says political too.
Yeah.
See that?
The world political.
They are so dogmatic, whoever put this map together.
Yeah, it's wrong. And we're for you, Africa, 110%.
110%.
It's an amazing, the diversity in Africa.
Africa's
is so
a
amazing.
Beautiful place.
Oh my God.
If you've never been, try and go.
Yeah, I've been to a couple places there in Africa, and it's just the people and the culture, and then you've got extreme desert, extreme jungle. Mm-hmm. You've got coastlines.
You got the Atlas Mountains. You got some great stuff down
everything there. Yeah. What I want to talk about is
drawing lines.
Drawing lines, because you told a story about a while back, and it got a lot of views on YouTube. So I wanted to kind of bring it in a little bit more. You talked about how the old days production.
Yeah.
And then how like managers would come out and they would just say, okay, we need these many pallets, or we need this much material made, and here's the line, and I want it, stacked up to that line.
Yeah. So I used to do a good amount of consulting work in manufacturing outfits. And, I Lean Six Sigma kind of stuff, like dealing with efficiency standards. Efficiency without firing people. I just want to state that, okay? Because most people are like, oh, just get rid of people. That's not what it was. It's like, well, how do you just make the person naturally more efficient? How do you ease their job and their burdens? Because that just makes the whole plant better, increases the morale too, especially when you're dealing with like union stuff. But, there were some places in terms of manufacturing where there would legitimately be a line on the wall. So in the shipping area where the product is actually going out, this material product, the owner of the factory would come in, and if the amount of product didn't hit that line, people were being inefficient for today. They were behind, right? So he knew that if the product hit this line, I'm making this much money, it's getting shipped out, we're going to do okay. So as long as this line is hit, I don't care how inefficient all the back processes are going on in the plant, it doesn't matter. We just got to make this line.
So what do you think without getting too technical, what do you think in more of a macro view where they came up with that line from?
Well, the line is strictly, it's a dollar thing for them. They know if the product reaches this line, I can ship, and this is the payback. But they didn't realize how much is actually lost on the back end. They think that this is the most efficient process.
Right.
Because of, what the accounts receivable is telling you, how many POs you're putting out or whatever it might be. But in truth, there's so much lost in the labor and, product waste and just time in general happening on the back end of the factory to achieve that stupid little mark that was put on the wall.
Yeah, because what if you had a shitty product, but you put that shitty product and you're taking shortcuts to get to the line?
Yeah, so your focus is on the line.
Right.
On the line rather than the people, the product, the quality, all these other things that really go into the making of something that is beautiful, right? So even if you're making whatever type of widget or a lock, if the person making it is having a bad day, they're gonna screw up.
Right.
But all of that, or even just design in general, they're not gonna care. So the one piece of data that you're looking at, this line, is not a true measure of efficiency. And so when we look at how we've been analyzing data right now, we've been looking at such a small part of the picture. And so all this information has been done, all the decisions are done on hunches.
Right.
Oh, that feels good. This line feels good. It makes the owner emotionally feel better, but they're only operating on 10% of the information. 90% of the factory is up in flames.
Right.
Your workers are completely upset. There's hazards all over the place. You're not looking at all of the data that feeds your little line right here.
And this is something that I want to get into. When you see the tech industry in the 1990s and you see creativity, I mean, it's unrivaled. The amount of tech that was created in the 1990s. And I mean, just the iPhone alone, I think is probably one of the greatest inventions. The smartphone in general. Probably one of the greatest inventions that we'll ever experience. I mean, it totally changed everything. And then you started getting into small computing, which was Apple and Bill Gates and, Steve Jobs and all them. And then, being able to have, instead of a cash register, now you have a computer, at every business. And now they're so affordable. Everyone has one, So whenever you look at tech and you see the 1990s and this extreme creativity, and then you look at tech now, there wasn't a line on the wall back then.
No, there's such an availability of capital, and there was such a push for the next best technology that people would fund anything, any sort of creative idea. And when we look at how technology businesses have developed today, it's no longer, it lacks a good chunk of it, that creativity, because when people think creative, oh, that's costly.
Yes.
They don't understand that it requires a lot of upfront time to get to something truly significant. So a lot of these businesses are just businesses remaking the same type of business. Yes. And it lacks creativity. And now the only focus is on ROI rather than pushing the needle forward on helping humanity.
It's like the iPhone 32. I'm just afraid it's going to have a better camera, a better screen.
Yeah.
A different size.
There's no creativity in that.
No.
The creativity was in thinking about putting a computer in someone's hand.
Right.
That's a creative thought. But once it's already been done, now you're just improving, you're iterating upon technology that's already been since the early 2000s. And so when we look at what the line used to be, as opposed to the line now, the creativity has been skirted. It's
what do you think the line is now? Is it just shareholder profit?
Yeah, it's from the conversations we had with investors, it's just like, how do I get paid? What's your first $5,000 in monthly recurring revenue? And if you don't have it, we don't want to talk to you. Even if you have the most creative and beautiful idea in the world that's truly people first, it's going to do that much good. They don't care about the big picture. There's a large majority of them that don't see it. And a lot of them don't want to take the risk. They have 10% of the data. They have a little view of how they think the world should operate. And because they have money, the resources, they think that they're the real decision maker.
So why is creativity and risk been stifled? And why does it seem like it's kind of stagnant in those? Because, like you take like Uber reinventing the way that we travel.
Yeah, it's car sharing.
Yeah,
That's
and then you take you take Adobe reinventing the way we do documents. You take Apple and Microsoft, and they reinvented. I mean, even Microsoft with the Xbox, and then you had Nintendo and all them, and they reinvented this whole virtual reality,
personal entertainment, virtual reality, like all of these things.
Netflix reinvented the movies, and all of that happened in the 90s and early 2000s, and then it seems like all we're doing is just building. We've put a line and we're like, okay, we need to get to here. You need these Netflix, you need all these many new signups.
That's the thing. It's become so quantitative.
Right.
We left qualitative behind.
Yes.
And in qualitative is all the things that make us human. And so all the development, all the technology has not been for the benefit of people, but for the benefit of reinventing technology. Here's technology. Let's reinvent the same damn thing. Let's make the wheel rounder.
Yes.
Okay.
We have, and I heard an analogy the other day on a podcast, and it's so great that everything has become so fear-based. We're seeing it really now.
Well, that's why COVID. I said nobody wants to take any risk.
Right.
So you see it in the healthcare system.
Right.
You see it with insurance companies. You break your windshield twice, they drop you.
Right.
What's the point of insurance? You're there to protect me. It's not like I'm trying to purposely break my windshield, and you see it with, investors. If you even run a business, They want it to be all done and upfront for them, and they'll put the money in, and it's almost like zero risk.
Yeah.
It's called venture capital, because you're venturing out to high risk places where people haven't done stuff before, but it's a total misnomer now because they're just all investing in the same stuff and purchasing and repurchasing from one another. They're not truly taking a risk. And lucky for us, we found people that believe in pushing the needle forward to help humanity. People that see the larger picture and realize that creativity, that's something that takes time.
Right.
And you have to foster creativity. And creativity is not fostered in a world that has become commoditized. And they've commoditized tech industry and startup and all this other thing. That's why you see all these incubators everywhere and, what have you.
Or the end goal of the company is to, how can I sell this company? How can I come out in a few years and have made this much money? So I'm going to go through my burn rate and here's where I'm at.
We always knew when someone says in 5 to 7 years, what's the exit look like? I knew we were talking to the wrong person. Because when you're looking at something that has a mission, purpose, value of the greater good for hundreds of countries across the globe and every single individual that lives within that country, that's not a 5 to 7 year thing. It takes time. That takes people that have vision. And when you're just marking a line on the wall and saying, this is where the product has to hit, that lacks vision. That lacks foresight and actually the perspective to look at all the other data that's happening behind you about is what's really required to get to that end point. People just want to see the end and just be done with it.
Yeah,
they don't want to put in the work.
What are your leading KPIs? Okay. And then it's like, whether it be an investor, whoever it may be, a CEO, okay, here's our line.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do whatever it takes, whatever strategy we have to do, whether it's, to make a profit, we're going to lay off 200,000 people or however it may be.
Yep.
We're going to put this line here. And what I wanted to get into with fear, and then we'll close out on this. And this was a great example. Kyle Kingsbury, I was listening to his podcast, and he talked about this. He goes, back in the, it's like taking, people that used to live in a cave back in the days. And so one guy decides to venture out of the cave. Well, he doesn't come back. He gets ate by a lion. So everybody's like, oh my God, you can't go out of the cave.
Don't go out of the cave.
It's so fearful. Where like one guy says, well, how about we make spears?
So we can defend ourselves.
Yeah. And that's humanity. It's taking struggle, taking something that is fear-based and heading into the fear.
Yeah.
And saying, how can we outwit that? Not physically, but with our minds. How can we do that? How creative can we be with risk?
Yes.
To turn around and change humanity for the better.
Yeah. And when we just look at how companies now point at each other and make blame or say that, you have a bad product, you're doing this, blah, 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 blah. It lacks a vocabulary of unification. Somebody may be doing something that isn't the best way to do it.
Right.
So find a way to work with them rather than make them the enemy.
And that's what we're trying to do at TARTLE. I've had several people say, well, you guys are talking against big tech. No, we're not.
No, we're not. We're talking about...
I'm for Google. I'm for Facebook. I'm for all of those.
We're talking about helping all of us evolve together.
Yes.
We can make their processes more efficient. We can help bring higher moral and ethical values together. We can deepen the respect for the people that support those systems.
Yes.
Right? And that's what we're looking to do. We're not here to create enemies. We're not here to draw a line in the sand and say, this is the parallel, you're bad over here, we're good. It's a function of us working together to bring the qualitative stuff of what it means to be a human being into the very quantitative world that we've evolved faster than ourselves.
And data is that qualitative aspect of being a human now.
It is.
It's the gold or the oil.
Yeah.
That was back in the old days. And data is that now.
And the future quickly moves into the past in a very fluid form. So if we do not take the data of recording that and going back and reflecting on it, it'll be very difficult for us to learn and evolve as a species or even as a business, right? And that's what we need to look at. That's the value in it, is looking back at those things and learning from what we have recorded. And data allows us not to forget. It just records what is. And instead of just looking at the 10%, which is your future, we got to look at the other 90% that led us to this point of what our future is.
Right.
Okay. So we have to evolve as the owner of our factory.
Have you heard, and I'll close out on this, have you heard the story in the Bible of Jesus going to...
Oh, we're getting religious on this. Okay.
No, I think it's interesting because he drew a line in the sand.
I like parables. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a parable.
Give me a parable.
He drew a line in the sand, and there was a lady that was being accused of some pretty horrendous crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pharisees, the religious people at that time,
Got
came and... when they and Jesus walked up, and they were going to, back then they would stone people, like take big rocks, put them in a pit, and then,
there's still some countries where people do that.
There's still countries, and then and so he drew a line in the sand, and he said, "Those of you without sin, you can step over here, and then you can judge." And I look at, the reason I'm mentioning that story is because I'm looking at these companies, like you said, squabbling back and forth and arguing and doing all these things. And it's like, can you step over in that other line? Is your metric, your line on the wall, your line on the sand, is it to help humanity? Is it to take the risk and be creative?
Yeah.
And when you can step over on that line, then you have the right to say anything.
Yeah. Then you have because you're on the side of life and evolution.
Yes.
And your data will help us evolve.
Right.
We just need to use it better. And we can do that by respecting people. It's easy to point fingers and build a wall and say that's an enemy. But the question is, how do you actually build a bridge and connect to those people?
And that's what TARTLE does.
Yeah.
We're bridge builders.
We're bridge builders. We're not wall builders.
Right.
We saw the failures of the Berlin Wall.
Yes. Yeah.
And said we would have just built a big old bridge.
Yes.
And then figured out how to work with one another.
Yeah. And I think that's where we've come full circle back to the beginning, is we're not going to draw any lines on the wall because we want to build that bridge. We want to talk to Facebook. We want to talk to Google.
And you know why we want to talk? Because it's exactly what my shirt says.
Yes, I love that. It's a German.
Yeah, it's a German saying. It's Ich weiß es nicht. And it means I don't know, or I don't know anything. So because of that lack of knowing, we need to communicate with one another. We need to bring the collective of our mind and our data together and focus it on very important things. Because we can solve it when we bring the collective power together and we are honest with ourselves and say we don't have all the answers. We only had 10% of the view. Now we got to go out and speak with one another and collect that other 90%.
So, TARTLE, if you had an opportunity to, let's say Mark Zuckerberg called you today.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to know a little bit more about TARTLE. What is it? What is the main things that you do, and how can you help Facebook, and how can Facebook become a better tech company?
Yeah, no problem. Facebook, I'd be like, Mark, you've created a tool that watches people. And then you feed them things that they think they want to see. Because you've watched them and put together an algorithm that is, defining what they should find value in. But you haven't listened properly to what they actually find value in and are putting it back towards your thing. The people that support your corporation are the users, the people that have a Facebook profile. It shouldn't be for you to define how they think, walk, talk, and act, or should receive information, but rather them coming back and you listening to them. You're doing all the talking. You need to let them do all the talking and become a better listener. And you can do that by appropriately getting information in a very fair and ethical manner of purchasing it from them to understand the qualitative aspects of the billions of users that you have beyond the quantitative observational mode that you've taken on. And when you take that other 50%, you create a bridge that you lacked before. And then you can find real balance and you can feel good about the value you're creating. And you probably won't get as much of a rap that you have gotten for everything else that's happened at Facebook, right?
I don't know why. Everybody does his memes and stuff like that. I think he's like truly a good person. I
don't know him.
I don't know him either, but I mean, just for, and this is my limited perception, and maybe we'll get comments otherwise, but to me, he seems like I think his intentions are good, like going in and putting internet in Africa. And I know he's going to make a lot of money from that or whatever. But I mean, when he talks about schools and education, I mean, he probably more than anyone has the ability to influence economies in these different countries, especially third world countries.
He has the ability to influence people.
Right.
And people influence economies. I got to give it to him. He did whether he stole it or whatever, it doesn't really matter. He created Facebook and he currently manages it.
Mm-hmm.
Enough said and done. He's created something that is so pervasive all over the globe that has opened up another level of communication and interaction that we didn't have in the first place.
Yeah. What would we have without? You know, I mean, would the world be better if we didn't have Facebook? And I know I've watched Social Dilemma, and I know you have too. But it's like any tool, it's the response, and you believe this, and I believe this too. Any tool that's out there, it's the responsibility of the individual to use it properly.
Yeah,
you can't
blame Facebook. We were not responsible with how much data we were giving away, or we weren't, truly conscious of how this thing was evolving.
Right.
We weren't paying attention. And when we don't pay attention, things can fly right under our noses. And I think we pushed all of us all together, pushed it to what it is. When something's so large like that, it is very difficult to maneuver that ship with so much weight.
Mm-hmm.
And the collective of people using it kind of maneuvered it in a certain direction. And there are other influences like money that come in, and people are saying like, oh, can we use it this way? I think this might be beneficial. Sure. But, people have the power, and they always forget that. And we just are only now stepping up to the plate and saying, I really don't like you feeding me up things like this or using my information this way or whatever it might be. We're only now just starting to find a voice for this technology that we co-created. Zuckerberg didn't do it himself. Us using it helped actually refine those systems.
Yeah, and it's so funny. It's like, and to kind of push back a little bit, I was listening to Joe Rogan the other day, and he was talking about YouTube, and I agree with him 100%. For me personally, I actually enjoy the ads I get on YouTube. Like, they do a great job of the ads they serve.
They know what they're doing.
I could easily pay the, $9.99 a month or whatever, and I don't get ads.
Yeah.
But sometimes I get really unique companies that are very relevant to what I want to see a Patagonia ad.
Yeah.
I'll watch the whole thing all the way through.
Sometimes I'll watch a 5-minute Patagonia
Yeah,
ad.
the North Face ad is amazing. Like, get out, go. I mean, some of the ads are so well done. With things that I believe in, or Nike's ads, and it's almost like, for me, it's like, it's not a disruption because the algorithm serves them so well to me.
And I think the value in advertisement is changing.
Yes.
And it's not just like hammer me with a product. It's more purposeful now. And so you don't mind going through it, because when I see the ad, I also want to learn the purpose behind this company. I want to see other people doing good.
It's like the North Face. It's kind of a controversial view if you really think about it. The whole commercial's like showing the ocean, showing, the mountains, showing lakes. And it's just like, get outside.
Yeah.
Like, and that's you think about it, it's like a cool commercial or whatever, but if you really think about it, that's a pretty controversial statement right now.
It's shaking you up.
Yeah.
It's like you're missing, what the world is delivering you.
Like there's nothing wrong with you going out on a hike, just social distance, wear a mask, whatever. But there's nothing wrong with that. You need to go outside.
Yeah. You need to connect with the thing that makes you.
Like, no one expected bike sales to be like they are bicycles. And so I just read an article, I think we're going to be talking about it soon, how the city's infrastructure is changing because so many people are on bikes now. I do that. I have a bike. That's all I have. I don't have a car.
All you ride is a bike.
I have a bike. I have a nice bicycle. That's it. And I bought it online.
It's great.
Yeah.
No, and I tried to get my bike repaired, and all the shops are 3 months behind.
Yeah.
It's interesting, how especially in this area in New Mexico, everybody's got to be outdoors.
Yes.
And we do have a nice bike infrastructure. You can get anywhere around here.
Yeah.
There's bike lanes literally everywhere.
Yes.
And they have great one-off bike paths. But, that's a side point. But, if we're drawing that line, the token to learn from this is that we need to pay attention to the other 90% of the data. Whether that's the people that support the company or 90% of the processes that lead to the 10% of our profits, we need to focus on that because it's been missed, and there's no reason for us to operate on those hunches anymore. And we need to respect the things that truly support our businesses, right? Our healthcare systems, our political systems, our countries, and that's the people, right? And the interaction of them and their data and what they create, we need to be co-creative in that process.
Yes.
Rather than just looking at it from an economic advantage.
Co-creative. I love that word, Alex.
Thanks.
Thanks.